All right, so I'm going to go over a little bit of the syllabus for Human Biology Honors, an honors class for juniors and seniors. So I am Mr. Aroso. If you need to get a hold of me, you can call me at school during regular school hours at this number, extension 2110, or just ask for room 509. Usually people just email me. So here's my email address right here, kurt.aroso@tulare.k12.ca.us. Now I get 50 to 70 emails a day from students. Some are just junk, from other teachers, from admin, whatever. So I get a lot of emails. So if you email me and I haven't gotten back to you within 24 hours, email me again. It might have just got lost underneath all the emails I get. So if I don't get back to you within 24 hours, email me again. So this class is basically anatomy and physiology. So what does that mean? So like for this, anatomy would be like, hey, what is this? What is this? What is this little U-shaped structure? All right, so the anatomy would be, this is the spleen, this is the pancreas, this is the first part of the small intestine called the duodenum right here. Physiology would be like, what do these things do? What's their function? What's their job? So the spleen filters out old red blood cells. It's part of your immune system. Pancreas here has various functions. Digestive, it secretes digestive enzymes, and also sodium bicarbonate, which keeps your intestines from getting burned by the acids when the food comes from your stomach and goes into the small intestines. It also has controls blood glucose with its hormones insulin and glucagon. And the duodenum here is the first part of the small intestines. This is where the gallbladder is going to secrete bile, which helps to digest fats, and this is also where the pancreas secretes its digestive enzymes and digestive juices. Course prerequisites, you should have got a C or better in biology because this is a very, very difficult class. Biology is a freshman class, so it's kind of geared to, towards that age level. Whereas this is really a college level class. We use a college textbook. Our exams are very difficult. Our first quiz was last week. I believe the average score was around 56%. And that's usual. It was for all the classes. The scores were low. And that first quiz is always like a kind of a wake up call. Like, whoa, all right, this class is going to be difficult. I'm going to have to put the work in. So the first semester we go over 3 different units. Right now we're in the body position, gross anatomy, and anatomical terminology unit. So it's basically kind of like an overall of the human body, the whole body. And then we go into specific systems, the nervous tissue unit, which is basically like neurons, the different tissues that makes up your nervous system, the brain and spinal cord. And then we go in the central nervous system, which specifically is just the brain and spinal cord, not all the nerves outside in what's called your peripheral nervous system. This is just the central nervous system. And that's what we'll end up the first semester. Second semester, we go into the digestive system. Then we go into the skeletal system. They'll need to know most of the major bones in the body. I think there's 106. They'll probably need to know 40 or so. And then we go into the muscular system, and they'll have to know most of what's called the superficial muscles. There's way more. There's like over 300 muscles. They won't need to know nearly that many, but they will need to know about 40 of the superficial muscles. And superficial just means muscles that are closer to the surface of the skin, not deep inside the body. And now the grading. Standard grading scale, 90 to 100 for an A, 80 to 89 for a B, and so on. The breakdown of our points, you can see that exams, lab practicals are part of our exams. So our exams are broken up into 2 sections. So half the students will be up front doing the computer, the multiple choice part of the test, and the other half of the students will be in the back at the lab tables. There'll be stations set up, and they'll have a clipboard with their little answer sheet, and they'll be looking at models. They might be looking at a dissected rat or pig with little markers in them. They have to identify different structures and their functions. So exams, lab practicals, and quizzes are 75 or 3/4 of your grade. Labs, projects, and all our writing assignments. We have some research papers that we do 1 per unit, only a page and a half double spaced. So it's not like a huge research paper, but they do have a lot of writing in this class. And your classwork and homework is basically about 5%. Now, it really ain't going to be a lot of homework because there's very little lecture in this class. There's basically, this class is like a huge list of terms that the students have to know. So I don't go over every single term, in lecture. They learn the terms through the work that they do in class. Now there will be homework, and that's gonna be called studying. But as far as like doing assignments at home, it's not gonna be much of that. Most of our assignments will all be done in class. And now our policy on late work, makeup work, and extra credit work. So as a general rule, late work is not tolerated. If it is turned in late, I don't consider it late until I grade it. And usually I don't grade it until like a week later. So if by the time I grade it, if it still hasn't turned in, it's pretty late. And you can get up to lose up to half credit. So for the most part, if it's late, the best you can get is half credit. So you really want to try to stay on top of that. Use your class time wisely, and you shouldn't turn in anything, or at least not too many things late. Unless you're excused absences, that's an exception, especially if our assignment is on paper where you actually have to be here to get it. But if it's on computer, on Google Classroom, which most of our assignments are, for the most part, you should be able to keep up with the class, even if you are absent. This is exams. This one's pretty important here. So if you miss one, if you're absent for one exam, no problem. The second time you're absent, it's going to require contacting parents. And the third time you're absent for an exam, it's an automatic 0. And the reason for it is these exams are tough. And if you're absent, if you purposely miss that class, you're at a big advantage because you're going to hear all about the exam from your friends that took it. And then you're going to come in a couple days later and then you get to do the makeup, but you already know what's on the test. You already know which organs to study for. You already know what the written questions are going to be. So you really want to try to make it here on exam days. Now, of course, school activities, like if we schedule exams every time the volleyball team has a game and they're going to miss class, well, that's poor scheduling by us. So if it's some sort of school related activity that causes you to miss it, it won't count for this. But we only give 6 tests a year, 6 major exams a year. So if you miss 3, if you're absent for 3 of them, that's quite a bit. So you really want to try to make it on exam days. All right, so here's the list of terms for our first unit, Unit 1. So the first 6 weeks, most of these terms are brand new for the students. So these are the anatomical locations. I believe there's like 33. So acromial is top of the shoulder. Antebrachial is a term that means your upper arm. Antecubital is a term that means the anterior or front part of your elbow. Axillary is a new term that just means your armpit. So these are all brand new, but we give them activities to use these terms, and then we also give them practice quizzes so they can practice them over and over and over. List of organs they'll need to know, be able to identify them, and what's their job, what's their function. Quite a big list. Planes of section, if you're doing a dissection. So frontal/coronal is dividing or cutting the organism or structure into an anterior and posterior section. Mid-sagittals, if you if you do a mid-sagittal on the brain, it's going to be cutting it right down the middle into 2 lateral halves. Serous membranes, those are membranes that surround various organs in the body, like pericardium surrounds the heart. Body cavities are spaces within the body. And then directional terms like anterior means towards the front, posterior means towards the back, caudal means towards the tail, deep is deep, lateral means away from the midline or closer to the sides. So that's our terms for this unit. All right, so here's a couple models that we're using right now for a lab. This is also what our lab practicals will look like on test day. So like right here, you can see letter M right here. Hopefully my students know that's part of the large intestine. That's the transverse colon. So typical, if this was actually inside the torso, this transverse colon would be located right about here. So a typical question might be, list all the body cavities that contains M from largest to smallest. So the largest would be the ventral cavity, which is a space that takes up basically the whole anterior or front part of your body. The second largest would be the abdominopelvic, just below the diaphragm, the abdominal and the pelvic cavity. And the smallest cavity that contains the large intestines would be the abdominal cavity. So we're getting rid of the pelvic. Over here we have the digestive system model. So A would be the esophagus. That's the food tube, carries food from the mouth to the stomach. Here's your pancreas right here, the duodenum. So the students will have to know what these organs are and what their job is in the body.